Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 16 millimeter film crew. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Dale.
You can watch us on YouTube. You can like and comment on our YouTube videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen to us everywhere podcasts are found at 16 millimeter film crew podcast. And you can visit us on our website at www.16millimeterfilmcrew.com. This week, we watched Wicked, directed by John M. Chu. Misunderstood because of her green skin, a young woman named Elphaba forges an unlikely but profound friendship with Glinda, a student with an unflinching desire for popularity. Following an encounter with the Wizard of Oz, their relationship soon reaches a crossroad as their lives begin to take very different paths. This movie stars Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Glinda, with Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Bowen Yang, Marissa Bode, Peter Dinklage, Michelle Yeoh, and Jeff Goldblum. So, Unlimited, tell me your thoughts.
Oh wow, you're singing it now. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I was actually really pleasantly surprised by the movie. Much better than I expected. With me, I even though I love Broadway and love theater, musicals tend to be hit or miss with me. Um, I do feel like the like media literacy is really poor in this country, and I'll probably hit on that later. Um, in the podcast on another topic. But um I thought the movie with its the subtext behind it was really poignant for what's happening right now in the country and in the world. So yeah, it was more than I was expecting. I know I always say certain movies are not marketed for me, but this was a pleasant and welcome surprise watching this.
Yeah, I have my green background, so I feel very Elphaba at the moment. Yeah, my friends watched this movie. I remember we talked about this last year. We were like, musicals are not our thing. Like, we're probably not gonna watch it for a while. But my friends watched it, and she was like, it's the best movie I've ever seen. Blah, blah, blah. Like she was so excited about it. Like everyone was really excited about it, which is interesting because because of the whole discourse, the publicity that surrounded this film, I wasn't really sure like what it was actually going to like how people were going to receive it, but because it was received so well, both in terms of like critically and also in terms of box office, like I was like, okay, I think I can give this a shot because it is like it's very like the conversations around it and like how it's being positioned, it's just so it's getting so much high praise that I feel like I have to give it a chance, even though I really don't like musicals. Like I'm just not that is just not for me. So I was a little afraid of watching this movie, but then I was like, everyone likes it, so like it must be good. And it really was. It was a really good movie. Like I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. Um, I feel like whatever issues Cynthia Erivo has in her personal public standing, um, her voice is magic. I'm sorry. Like the woman's voice is on another level. Like I don't understand it. Like it almost brought me to tears multiple times. Like that's how incredible her voice is. And to me, like she is the best part of the movie. Like I love her dynamic with Ariana Grande. I think it's very beautiful. I love their like friendship outside of this experience. I think that their chemistry was really solid, and obviously the story doesn't work if those two characters don't have that. So I thought that was great, and I thought Ariana Grande was great. But in terms of like what was holding the movie, like what I was holding space for, it was for like Cynthia Erivo's performance. Like she did something specifically to me, and I don't know what it was, but like I don't know. It was just so impactful for me as a viewer. So everything that she's getting, all of the awards and the accolades, to me absolutely deserved. Like she killed this role, like absolutely fabulous. Ate it down, loved it. And everyone else who was a part of the cast was so good too. Like I think that was my favorite part about the movie is that like everyone was bringing it. Like everyone like gave really strong performances in this. So like not one part was lacking. So it made me enjoy every scene, even though like I feel like in terms of like the pacing and certain things like that, like that stuff could have been worked on a little bit more. But in terms of like the performances, I think the production design, the way it was shot, the cinematography, fantastic. Even the visual effects, like I bought into it. Like, I don't know. Again, I'm not the person to go to say, like, hey, that looks realistic or not necessarily, unless it looks like too extreme in either direction. But like, I thought everything looked pretty good. I thought the colors were nice. Like, it didn't look like it was shot on like a backlot somewhere. Like, it actually looked good, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm right or not, but in my opinion, I enjoyed the visuals and the choreography and the songs. Like I just thought all of it was really well done. So
Yeah, like I have a litany of issues with Cynthia Erivo, which, you know, I can also I can also separate her talent as a singer and a theatrical performer in this. But what part of me wishes her opinions on certain topics, apparently issues of being a Black American. Um, they like I said, the thematic stuff in this movie hits more. Um, And I don't know. I kind of feel bad because it seems like she gets these roles, and these roles have to do a lot with the Black experience. And I feel bad that she decried and disrespected that whole issue of being Black, particularly in America, which I find weird because she's giving a lot of these roles like do a lot of social subtext, and I feel like those subtexts are kind of lost on her in a way. Like, um, even with like the fan edits of the Wicked poster trying to make it match more like the actual Broadway poster, how she lambasted fans with it and everything. I think she is a person who probably might have, I guess, been hurt in some way, and she lashes out at people in the wrong way, which it affects people's opinions of her. But regardless of that, I think she was perfectly passed to the role. Like her talents really shine in this project more so than Ariana Grande. 'Cause I do feel like Ariana Grande is always kind of playing. You don't know who the real Ariana Grande is. Like for me, watching her, like even from
mhm.
her Nickelodeon days and her peaking for her pop star fame, which she kind of is still somewhat in to some of her movie and TV roles. I feel like she's always playing a person. Never really get to know the real her in a way. Um, but regardless of this movie was actually really, really, really beautiful. Like, and I can see how some people thought it would take too long because this movie was like 3 hours long. Like, I don't know this movie. Like, I find it weird that this movie is 3 hours long because they're splitting. I don't know how long the Broadway play is. I think the Broadway play is in totality like 3 hours long for the most part. But like they realize this project is so large, you're splitting up into two parts. There's no way they couldn't have split it more into three in a way. The middle would be like her and Glinda and Elphaba's friendship, and then the middle part would be that separation part, and the ending would be I guess they're doing the resolution how their consequences have played. They could have broken up more into three movies, and not be a 3 hour long movie for the first one. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea how the play goes. I mean, I think someone did explain it. They said that it was like maybe a little over 2 hours, and it's different because you have an intermission.
Hmm.
So like it makes sense to split it in two because you would have to have a natural intermission when you're watching a stage show. And a movie, like I don't know. I feel like okay, I'm trying to figure out the right way to explain this. I feel like when you're watching a movie, you can feel pauses or you can feel where characters are kind of lingering around a little bit. It's kind of like when you're watching like a season television and
Hmm.
you know which episode is the filler. For me, that it kind of it's almost the same thing in terms of like film where like you feel scenes that feel long and you know that like this is like we're kind of padding the runtime here a little bit.
Mm,
So, for example, in the scene where they go to the Oz ball and Elphaba comes in and everyone's making fun of her because of her hat. The scene where she starts to dance and then her and Ariana start to dance together, that scene, that portion of that scene was dragged out long to me. Whereas if you maybe would have cut that a little bit down, you might have had some room for some other stuff in there. Because I don't know the play, so I don't know what happens in the second act. Because in my mind, all I know is the Wizard of Oz. And honestly, it's like that's the story that I know and I'm familiar with. So I'm like, okay, well, what we kind of set up everything already in here of like basically she's not a bad person. Everyone has just said that she's bad because she didn't do what they wanted her to do. And there's
mm,
this like huge propaganda about her being a terrible person or whatever. Um, so I'm wondering like, okay, where does this lead? I guess the second act is her actually turning bad because if I remember the Wizard of Oz correctly, she is like she's not great. Like,
yeah.
Gurley isn't doing her thing. So maybe that's the second act. But then again, does that warrant an entire movie to see that downfall? I don't know. So hopefully John Chu just knows what he's doing in terms of splitting it in two. And hopefully that's not like a cash grab. Like, let's just make more money off of this property. Like, hopefully there's a real story there to be told. I don't know. But I'm assuming so because I guess Defying Gravity is the song that they end the first part on before they go into intermission. I don't know. I haven't watched the show. This is what I'm hearing. So like there is a second part.
Yeah.
Now, is that second part going to warrant another 2 hour and 40-minute movie? I have no idea. So to me, that was the only thing that kind of was the thing that I wasn't in love with was the pacing of it. For the most part, it was fine, but there were definitely some scenes where I felt like they were kind of just dragging it out a little bit to get us to that big defying gravity moment. Because once that happens, it's like, well, yeah, the movie's done.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any more climactic than that moment. So
So yeah,
that's
so
it.
the this movie is well, this Broadway play is based on a reinterpretation of The Wizard of Oz, written by Frank Elbaum, and that has to do more in line with the original Wizard of Oz play, well, movie play, that we've all seen, the Tin Man, all that stuff, and those characters come from there. The Broadway play is come from a reinterpretation of that move of those series of books, written by I want to say Stephen Maguire. I'm probably saying his name wrong. Probably got it wrong. Um, Gregory Maguire, and that the Broadway plays come from that. It's kind of like I know you remember watching Oz Great and Powerful with what's dude name? Dang, Oz homeboy that's not Seth Rogen's friend, James Franco. Oz Great
I
and
never watched
Powerful.
that.
Never watched it, so it's kind of like that. Oh, we're doing a prequel to The Wizard of Oz, how Oz gets there. This is kind of reinterpretation of all those events using more contemporary themes, like the Book of Wicked. Like you could see in this movie, like how reason why I said that it's very timely for what's happening right now. And McGuire's reinterpretation of the story of Oz and Wicked. He's adding nature versus nurture. Are kids born bad, or do they just turn bad? The themes of terrorism and propaganda. Oz himself mentions in this movie that there is chaos. What really unites people is a common enemy, which we kind of see happening right now in the world today. So so McGuire's interpretation of the Wizard of Oz puts more contemporary themes into the play, which is what we get now as we're watching. So,
Yeah, and I really liked that it was so, I guess, politically poignant, in terms of the theme that they're hitting on. Um, but also something that someone said a while ago, because I was like very much watching the Wicked discourse, even though I didn't watch the movie because it was just like endlessly fascinating. Um, but someone was saying that they couldn't believe that a Black woman had just been cast in the role of Elphaba because it seems like a role that a Black person should be in anyways,
yeah,
considering the themes that they're talking about. Like
Yeah,
a person of color, hello. Like it does make sense that like Cynthia Reeve, or not even her, just a black person is in the role.
yeah,
But I think because when her casting came out, I don't know how people felt about that at first, but people had a lot of feelings about Ariana's casting. But I think once they were like, oh, it's Cynthia, people were fine. But it is interesting that like that character wasn't being played by a black person for all these years. And this play started I think in the early 2000s, and what is her amazing name? I love her. Idina Menzel
yeah.
was the person who originated the character on stage. So, and I love her. I think it makes perfect sense like when you know Idina's voice, it's like, yeah, that makes total sense why you were cast in this role. But it is interesting that like a black person wasn't cast in the role because those themes of being ostracized for the color of your skin, it just feels like it makes
Perfect sense.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
So, that was interesting. By the way, loved that they popped up in this movie. First of all, shout out to no one for spoiling that because I had no idea that Adina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth were going to show back up in this
Hmm.
movie. I think that's honestly, I was like, that's amazing. Like, no one ever talked about it. But I think that that was so great because like those roles are so iconic and they were the ones who originated those roles. So the
Hmm.
fact that he was giving such a nod to the play and to those characters and the women who originated it, I just loved that. Like I loved that he did like little things like that. It just made me really happy while I was watching this movie. I was just like, yes, they're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. When you think Broadway, when you think theater in America, those two ladies' names pop up. More so than
Yes.
anybody else. You have your directors, right? You have your Andrew Lloyd Webbers. You have, of course, you have Lin Manuel. You have the creators. But as far as performers, Christian Chenoweth and Dina Menzel, they always come up in conversations. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But to your point that you said something about Ariana Grande's performance, and you made an interesting point about like how you don't. I think Ariana is a person who, like, I think she comes from like that older generation of acting where it's like you're not really supposed to let people know who you are
Yeah.
because the point is that you're playing characters.
Yeah.
And she is a theater girly. Like
Yeah.
that's where she originated from. So maybe I think her natural performance is theater kid. Like
Yeah.
not performance, her natural personality is theater kid. Like that's what she's given me. Like really like extra and kind of annoying, but like also very enthusiastic, very passionate about the work. Like, it's theater kid. Like
Yeah.
that's who she is. But I think because she did play that very famous character on Nickelodeon, she played Kat. She played, I'm not played, but she was the pop star Ariana Grande, and she kind of switched up her looks and her whatever, which is what you kind of have to do as a musician anyway. But like, I do think that if you're plugged into the Ariana Grande fan thing, then you are probably gonna know who she really is because you're watching the interviews, like you're in there. But if you're not really plugged in, like you probably won't really know anything,
Which is fair. Which is
which is
fair.
fair.
Yeah.
And like, I think what this film can do is that it can help distinguish the actors from um, the characters they're playing. Because honestly, Cynthia and Ariana Grande are very messy people. Like Ariana Grande had an affair with one of with the actors on this movie. I mean, they both engaged in the affair together, but like they were both married and both had an affair on the filming of Wicked. And they are still together right now. But like marriages broke up. There's a baby who like the guy was like newly a father. And that marriage broke down and blew up because he was with Ariana Grande. Like things came out. It was just so messy, and she has never really like apologized for that either. And even though it's not all her fault,
Yeah.
he is also responsible. But like when asked about it, she really wasn't like, I'm sorry that if I hurt anyone, that never came out of her mouth. So,
Yeah.
like, they're both very messy people. So, like, the stuff that they do, like, you really do have to, like, distinguish it from the performance, or else it's just gonna mess up your viewing experience when you're just like, oh, these two actors probably were, like, doing some mess in between takes or, like, or after things wrapped. Like, it's just they are interesting people. But I think in terms of the talent, like, it is kind of undeniable. Like, I one thing I will say is that about Ariana Grande's performance, which is why I couldn't fully enjoy her performance. One is because I couldn't get on board with the character until like maybe an hour into it, like when she starts to become tolerable and they become friends. Like that's when I was able to get on board with Glinda. Because that first hour, I was just like, "You're so annoying. Like I don't want to engage with you." But I know that's a part of the character, and she was doing it very well because I was annoyed. But I couldn't get on board with her until halfway through. Secondly, they have her singing in a very classical way, um, because I think that that's how Kristen sang it when she was on Broadway. I think that's her voice is, like, naturally maybe she's classically trained, I'm not sure,
Mhm.
but, that was her style of singing. And so when Ariana was doing her singing as Glinda in this movie, it was very classically that's the tone, like, very operatic, and I can only hear that for so long. It's kind of the reason why, like, I never went to Aeolian's concerts. If you're not from
Just
our
if you know,
school,
you know.
you don't know what I'm talking about, but, like, I just can't I can only deal with that for so long. Like, it
Yeah.
sounds pretty, and then after a while, I'm just like, "Please stop." And the thing is, Ariana Grande's voice is not naturally like that. So I was just wondering, I was like, well, why isn't she singing like she normally sings? And she does in that song. Maybe is it popular? Maybe it's popular. She starts to like her voice sounds like her voice and not like she's doing like a an
A
operatic
character.
version, yeah, of
Mm.
her voice. And I get that that's probably it was definitely a character choice. I'm sure that that was the reason why she did it, because maybe the character is supposed to sound that way. It's just that for me, it just bothered me a little bit because I'm like, Ariana Grande's voice is very good, so like, why can't we just hear her do that, um, instead of trying to do this other thing? So that bothered me a little bit. And then the last thing is that if you've watched her on Nickelodeon, some of the traits of Glinda were getting more Cat Valentine like, where it's just very like,
Vapid.
yeah, but that might be the character. I don't know. I
Mm.
didn't watch the play. I
Mm.
have no idea.
Yeah.
So I can't judge it on that. I mean, but just like in terms of certain facial expressions, noises, body language, it was just giving a version of Cat Valentine. If you had watched Victorious, like you can see the similarities between like what she's doing in that and what she does not all the time, but in sometimes in this. Which I don't know. I mean, it was fine. Like it worked. Like I think Ariana Grande is a comedic actress. Like I think she's pretty good at that. It's
Mhm.
just that like I could see the similarities, and in that way, I wasn't getting distance enough from what the character maybe could be. But again, I didn't watch the stage show, so I actually don't know what the character is. Maybe all of that stuff is completely accurate. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's just something that I noticed. It didn't take away from the performance for me. I think she still did a great job. It's just that like I just noticed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love like the as far as the thematic elements, I love the fact that, Elphaba, she's an outcast. She's ostracized, despite her father being governor, and being of some prominence, some power. She's largely unknown and hidden away due to the color of her skin. Where her sister, she is born disabled. She's paralyzed, but because the difference in skin, she is elevated further up, and that reminds me a lot of the model minority theory. Where I can say this being coming from an immigrant background of my family. I see a lot of times in this country that, oh, you're black, but you're not black American. That kind of thing. Like
Mm.
even I've experienced that at work before. Like one of my first jobs, like in high school, working at a restaurant. One of my bosses was like, "Hey." they're like, "Oh, you're." I said I was talking to somebody like, "You know, my family's Jamaican." Blah blah blah. My manager came like, "Oh, you're Jamaican? Oh, that means you're gonna go work twice as hard compared to everybody else." They already had imprinted in their head that because
Mm.
of where my family's from, culturally, I am now twice as studious, twice as hardworking, which is not true. I'm actually a very lazy person unless I'm creatively motivated. But it's things like that that I see peek through, and even with her sister with a disability, you know, you hear a lot of people who are in or are wheelchair bound speak a lot how they want help. When they want help, they'll ask for it, but they want their own independence and agency. And you see scenes where you know when they first get to school, the I guess the teacher aide that she's assigned to constantly wants to push her around, and her sister's like, no, she wants to be independent on her own. You know, she tells Alpha's like, why are you here? I told Dad I wanted to be independent by myself, and she's like, I agreed with you. You know, they also still want their agency as well. And then you have, of course, you know, Glinda, and then the prince. You know, Glinda's comes into school saying, oh, I'm used to not getting what I wanted because of who I am. Even the teacher, the goat teacher, he's like, some of you, some of you, Miss Glenda, are focused more on on style than your substance of your papers. That means you're just giving it a bare minimum. There's nothing more to you than what your facade you show, kind of thing. And then Yoko, the prince, coming through like, oh, I'm rich, I'm popular, I don't need to care about school. Like you see that mimic in society. There are people, some people who are currently in power. You know, my cousin refers to her as the Orange Führer. You know, because of the status they've achieved, they don't really have to do anything, so they don't know how things function. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. And I also saw like the relationship between Elphaba and her sister as like, well, this is a green person, but like in real life, Cynthia Erivo is
Yeah.
brown skin, dark skin, and this girl, her sister is fair skin. She looks biracial.
Hmm.
Like the hair texture is different. Like Elphaba has the braids, her sister has those like loose curls. Like and the treatment, even though she is wheelchair bound, like she literally like rolled up to a group of people and automatically made friends. Like,
Yeah.
so it's just like, yeah, even in the difference of skin tone, like even though we are technically both black, like certain people are gonna get treated in certain ways
Yeah.
because of how closer to white they look.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really interesting commentary and also interesting casting because at least it seems like someone thought about that while they were doing the casting choices.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought that was really interesting as well. And I like that they tried to give depth to well some of the characters, like the prince, obviously, like once it seems like he always kind of had that thing in him of like wanting to help people because he was a prince and very privileged, he felt like he didn't have to showcase that part because people already liked him. He already had like all the doors open to him. But befriending Alphaba, it did give him like some more depth. And even with Glinda, like her friendship with Alphaba gives her more depth too. Um, so yeah, it's like it's funny because like this is a spinoff of the Wizard of Oz, and the characters have already been painted as certain things. But like from minute like 5, I was like, everything that she did wrong, she didn't. Like, I support everything that she's doing because, like, yeah, it's interesting how people can be painted in a certain way and people will just believe it because they look a certain kind of way. So it's just easier to ascribe to them certain characteristics and be like, well, this is who you are. And the funny thing is, like, going back to that opening scene where Glinda is like going around the town, they're like burning the effigy of Elphaba and stuff. Like, she obviously knows the truth about who this character is or who this person is, but because we don't know the second part of the movie, but and also like because she wants to be popular, she wants to have a certain status in this society. She kind of goes along with the program, even though she knows it's not true.
Hmm.
So she even goes along with Michelle Yeoh's character at the end because Michelle's like, well, these are how things are supposed to be done, and Elphaba is not doing what we want her to do. It seems like the character of Glinda is very much like stick by the books, do the right thing, like do things the way that they're supposed to be done because the status quo benefits Glinda.
Yeah.
You know, it benefits her wanting to be popular and wanting to have that status. So like that is kind of who she probably always was going to be. But I think I think her relationship with Elphaba, it was supposed to like try to get her to think differently, but like at the end of the day, like she is gonna do what benefits her. And that also is very like poignant to what's happening right now. So
Yeah,
again, on multiple levels, the movie is connecting, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
So yeah, it's very timely, very thematic in its subject matter. I want to see how it progresses in part two, which comes out around Thanksgiving of this year. Um, you know, like like it says, people need an enemy to unite behind, and she just takes it upon herself like, if you want an enemy, I'll give you an enemy. I'm interested how this flows back into, like, of course you mentioned the Wizard of Oz, the initial play slash movie.
Mm.
I want to see how it plays that. I know some people have mentioned that her sister, I guess have theorized her sister is the one that Dorothy crushes when Dorothy lands, like her mother's shoes. And apparently they
Oh,
become, like, because they're silver, I guess, or white. I guess that blood or whatever turns them red and turns them ruby instead of diamond or whatever. A bunch of theories. I'm
that's clever.
theorizing that's what drives Glinda into her rage in that movie. Um, yeah, I'm interested. I can't wait to see how this, how it unfolds thematically.
Yeah, me too. I will actually go to the theaters and watch this
Yeah,
movie
yeah,
because I'm invested
yeah.
now.
I'm
Like,
invested.
so they got me. They got me. Listen, the whole press tour, like the making of this movie, there has been so much conversation about this movie that it's kind of its own cultural moment. Like it really is. And I
Yeah,
think that all of the work that was put in terms of like, selling wicked hotel experiences and Stanley Cups and just like the marketing of this movie was also kind of genius in a way. Like they shoved this movie in our faces and would not let it us forget that this was coming
yeah,
out. And it definitely paid off because it like I don't know. I think the budget for this movie was like 100 something million dollars and it made like 800 something million dollars afterwards and like made
yeah,
their money back plus more. So like I can't shade the hustle.
yeah.
Um but I think it was worth it. At least all of this stuff um culminated in a really good movie.
Yeah, the budget for it was 150 million. Not sure if that also accounts for part two. So I think they were shot back to back
Yeah.
consecutively. So I'm not sure if
Hmm.
that budget also includes part two, but this part one has made over um 700 billion dollars so far. So
Million,
yes,
not billion.
billion. Yeah, sorry if I said billion, million. It feels like it made a $1 billion. But yeah, I think this movie, and also going back to Barbie, it really says, like, look, if you market these movies well, the way they should be marketed, people will go. I think the industry as a whole has kind of accepted. Oh, we're gonna put the movie out, make a trailer, do a couple ads on internet, YouTube, Facebook, and that's it. And as long as we at least make some kind of profit based on the amount of money we spent casting big profile actors. They said, okay, if we spend money on the actors, people will come. Forgetting that marketing for these projects is part of what makes them successful. Because, like, I think about Titanic.
Mm,
Leonardo DiCaprio at the time of Titanic was not a big star. Titanic is what made him a big star, but it was the
mm.
marketing behind Titanic was what made it a cultural phenomenon as well. So
Oh, I need to look into
so hopefully the industry gets back in that mindset and marketing is just as important as the big name. Sometimes the big name isn't even worth it if it's not marketed correctly, and we've seen that as well. Like, look at Gladiator. The Pedro and him, they were on the cover of what, Entertainment Weekly, movies,
Mm.
all kinds of magazines, and it really didn't count for anything. You know,
Yeah, they have been promoting Wicked since the beginning of last year.
you know,
That's commitment to a movie that didn't come out until November.
hmm
Like, that's the kind of level that we have to operate on now, I guess. It's
yeah,
just like constant marketing for this
yeah,
film. All right, it paid off.
it pays
So,
off. Yeah, so of course, last night, the biggest, I guess, entertainment event. of the week slash weekend was, of course, the Super Bowl. Shouts out to the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Kansas City Chiefs 40-21. I was rooting for the Eagles the whole time. Yeah, I'm happy they won. You know, so yeah. But the biggest news outside of that win was, of course, Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show. Um, I don't know what you thought about. I thought it was wonderful. Kendrick Lamar, before when they interviewed him, saying what he's gonna, give to the people. His answer was storytelling, and he gave us that. Um, and looking at it, it's kind of funny. If you float between different groups and circles, you'll hear people predominantly of a piggybacking off the initial theme we were talking about with Wicked, of a certain demographic were complaining about the quality of the show, saying it wasn't that good. What are your thoughts on Kendrick's halftime show?
Yeah, I loved it. But honestly, I was probably predisposed to love it because I've been a fan for a long time. So
Hmm.
like, yeah, at a certain point with certain people, it's like I'm gonna eat up whatever you give me.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that what he gave were crumbs. He really did give a meal.
Hmm.
I thought it was so, I don't know. To me, it was just like there's such an expression of like all of the work that he had been doing in his albums that kind of led up to this moment. It was
Yeah.
kind of an infusion of all of those moments. And I thought that was really great the way that he presented the show. I thought that everything that he did was very intentional. And that's just like him anyways. But like I like that it wasn't so you know, let's storm the Capitol and
Yeah.
take back our,
Yeah.
our country. I think that it was a celebration of Black people and Black culture in a way that felt honest and didn't do too much, wasn't too over the top. Um, but yeah, I thought that he highlighted, especially where he's from, and never like really shied away from that. It's kind of hard him doing his performance just because it's like, you have to, there's so many things that you can't say, and it's only so far that you can go because it's the NFL. But I think within the context of like what he was able to do, I think he did a great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are
He
your feelings?
I loved it. Like me and my sister, like
Mhm.
this is weird because we had my dad and somebody from church was there. Like I'm like, and then like in the middle of the game, like I was texting my pastor because Saturday he came in church talking drunk about the Lakers getting Luca, and then me and him started talking about Super Bowl. But yeah, so I'm the whole night I'm just trash talking my pastor about the Chiefs losing, but that's we're the same age, so it kind of works. But no, me and my sister during the halftime show, we're literally bar for bar that's going with Kendrick, feel vibing it. And my dad's acts like what's going on, he doesn't get it. And so me and my sister are like, and I'm so thankful that my sister is like, even though we're like all the same generation, there's still age differences and how we interpret things. But my sister like is spot on with like her media literacy and understanding. Like me and her were able to explain what Kendrick's message it was in his halftime show to my dad, his church member, and our mom. Kendrick literally kicks off the thing with GNX. He also ad
Hmm.
libs, the revolution we televised, and you picked the wrong guy. From that moment, you know that Kendrick is not going to give. I think a large swath of Americans, after they saw the pop out on Amazon, they were expecting that out of the Super Bowl, and that's
Yeah.
what not Kendrick was going to give. And bear in mind, Kendrick was given the offer to do Super Bowl way before the election happened. So odds
Yes.
are the results of the election and what this current presidential regime, I'm going to call it a regime because that's what it is, um,
Hmm.
influenced the show he put on in a large way because the songs he picked are not they're most a lot of them are from GNX, but a lot of them
Hmm.
are um reacting telling of the black experience, and you also
Hmm.
have the idea of Samuel L. Jackson playing a Uncle Sam every moment repressing, saying this is not what America wants. So, all the stars comes in, he goes, that's what we want. Nice, calm. What Kendrick says, to Drake in Euphoria, you pacify him. He wants
Hmm.
the people to be pacified, and then he hits it with not like us, meaning don't deny Drake, you're not like us, but also but also not denying the importance of Black culture has in American history that you choose to ignore. That's not like us. Then
Mhm.
he ends it, with not like us ending with TV off. But all through it, he's just giving the Black experience through it while being suppressed by um Samuel L. Jackson, either as an Uncle Tom, much like he was in Django, or as Uncle Sam, the U.S. government repressing Black
Yes.
voices. So loved it.
It was I just loved it. I just thought the storytelling was just so good. Like the fact that Samuel L. Jackson was there. And Samuel L. Jackson, who is like he's a real deal. Like the stuff that he did back in the day
Yeah,
that I
man,
just learned about today.
man
Like
protested on Morehouse, like got
like
kicked out of
literally
school.
was like basically Black Panther adjacent, if not one of them, like
Yeah,
very serious about the cause, like has done so many Black roles. If you're a Black person, you've grown up on his films. Like it was so amazing to see him there, kind of narrating this opposition of like the Black experience against America, even though black the Black experience is a part of the American experience.
yeah,
It is this like very diametric split where it's like you are trying to do something, but there's always this oppression that comes from Uncle Sam, which like is capitalism, it's white supremacy, it's all of that stuff coming against like you just trying to be out here living your life, right? And I think his childhood and his experiences growing up in Compton, like that is a direct um uh I guess what's the right word, expression of like what this country has done to Black people. So like I think that it's like it was just I don't know, I feel like it's probably deeper than I can even comprehend at this
yeah,
very moment.
yeah.
But I do think that like him just having guys out there with dreads and grills just chilling, like just having like a guy on like the street lamp, just that being part of the setting,
Yeah.
having all these Black women like celebrating Black women and SZA, and it was just like
Serena,
having Serena Crip walk, like
yeah,
that was like it's just all of those details because the discourse that I heard, obviously the conservatives hated it, but like whatever, who cares
yeah,
about what they think? But in terms of like the people who didn't like it because they felt like he didn't go far enough,
mhm,
I feel like and FD, I think his name is Fig, right? Yeah, FD Signifier. He talked about this a little bit on his live stream. I can't wait for him to actually make a full video because I really want to know his like full thoughts on it. But he was saying that what people wanted Kendrick to do is what Beyonce probably did when she did the Super Bowl.
yeah,
I think it was around the Lemonade, around that time when she did Formation and stuff. But that probably came off. Well, he was saying that he didn't really like that because it was like you're kind of he was like you're kind of doing this thing where you're like trying to drag these institutions for being historically or systematically racist and stuff,
mm,
but you're still performing at the gig, like you're still profiting from, if not directly from the NFL, at least from Apple Music, from Apple the corporation, like from the exposure that you're getting from playing at such a huge event. Like it's hard to critique the thing that you're still a part of.
yeah,
So maybe instead of fully critiquing these institutions in a way that is just like very like, you're laying it on thick, maybe it makes sense to just do something that just speaks to the honesty of who you are. And through that, the
mhm,
messaging can come through.
yeah,
Like I always feel like when you're just doing your own thing and you're being yourself, that sends a large or a greater message than if you're trying to like beat someone over the head with a message necessarily.
yeah,
So like that to me was Kendrick's performance. It was like, this is who I am. This is how I grew up. This is my life. Like I'm
mhm,
showing it to all of you guys. And this is also the Black experience.
yeah.
Um, and then the part with Drake, like when he like winks at the camera, when he said, "Hey Drake," like I'm sorry, like that's iconic. Like having the Super Bowl sing A minor
You already had
in
the Grammys
unison,
doing
you
it.
already had the Grammys doing it when you won, literally swept the Grammys, and then literally a week later came to the Super Bowl and did this. Like, I'm sorry, like you are the moment. Like you're just on a different level at that point. Like, I'm sorry, like
Yeah,
no one, I have never seen that before.
yeah,
And I just feel like it really takes someone special like Kendrick, and like God, I really hope nothing crazy comes out about this man, because I can't. If he does something insane, I am gonna have to unstand. But for right now,
yeah,
nothing has come out yet, so
yeah.
fingers
Like,
crossed. But yeah, it's just like you're iconic at this point. Like your influence, and I think he mentions that in his set where he was like, "You're trying to, you're trying to do whatever." I forgot exactly the lyric word, but he was like, "You can't kill influence. Like this is
yeah,
he is what the culture is feeling. Like
yeah.
that's just what it is."
Like, I love like he used "Man in the Garden," which is kind of like, oh, I have all this status and success. I should be given the awards. And Kent, there was the second verse in "Man in the Garden" is basically like, look, I helped my children, I helped my community. It's the inverse. Like, you're focused on the outwardly appearance, I'm focusing on building small, like, all those touches. Of course, me and my sister were talking about, oh, look at the field. It's like, looks like a video game, like a the buttons on an
Yeah.
Xbox controller, and then somebody else, like, meaning it's not a game, or Black Lives are a game. Somebody else pulled out, oh, that looks like the Squid Game set with those shapes.
Mm,
Showing the dynamics between rich and poor, and how we're fighting each other for money when we should be fighting them. You got dancers dressed in red, white, and blue, which you can do triple. The America built on the back of black bodies. You also got, Kendrick himself. Also speaks about the gang violence. You got red and blue bloods and crips. You got whites. You got people caught in the middle, that kind of thing. Uh, uh, Sam Jackson, at one point says, deduct one life. Mass incarceration, the loss of black
that
bodies.
was so powerful. Yeah.
All that stuff, like the prison yard set, of course. And you mentioned involving black women. SZA, Serena's in there. After her constant, like, Drake's constant jabs at her, she's in it. She's from Compton. She's out there living her
Hmm.
life, crip walking as well.
Hmm.
All those touches, and in the midst of that, him speaking out about all our social issues that we face in the black and the government. What's happening? They're still joyous, and they're still dancing, they're still celebrating, which is
Mm,
something that we've always done. No matter how
yes.
much we've been beaten down, we always say, you know what, cool, we get back up. Like, we're still not, we haven't lost our smile yet. We always fight back through the culture, which is music, which is theater, which is the arts, and we constantly still celebrate, no matter what. Mm.
Yeah. And it's like, America, you wouldn't be anything without us. And I feel like that really to me was the point. Well, at least one of the points is definitely just like
You could do so
we
much. You could analyze this on so many. Like, if you
that's
go
something,
through the lyrics of the
which is
songs and
genius.
everything, yeah,
Which is genius. That like you can literally everyone can have a different interpretation of this one performance. And that's
yeah,
my thing. Like if he would have gone too much, it would have been like, okay, well, this is the blanket message. Okay, you're beating us over the head with it.
yeah,
The fact that he went subtle and
yeah,
like you have to dissect this stuff, like that is genius. Because honestly, when he put out GNX, I was like, you know what? I like this album, but it's not. I think conceptually, it wasn't like what I was used to in terms of like going more deeper into his psychology, his understanding, but also like what he is saying about society. I didn't feel like it had gone that deep as this other albums had, but I think that like what he did in this performance with a lot of songs from GNX, it was just like it was giving you exactly that message. Like it's that turn the TV off, like having that be the end of his set, saying like literally like, okay, I did my part. Now it's time for y'all to
it's time for
do
action.
yours.
Yeah,
And I feel like he's always talked about like not being a savior in terms of like, I cannot save this entire Black community. Like, I can't be the only person doing it. Like, we all have to pitch in. We all have to, it's like, if we care about each other,
yeah,
we all have to do the work. And we have to stop looking for one or two like special leaders, whether it be Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X, whoever, like, we gotta be willing to sacrifice because it's like we have to look out for each other and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like I really thought that all of that stuff was just really thought out, very intentional. The storytelling was brilliant. The
mm,
camera work was great. I think people had issues with the sound mixing because like the music was kind of louder than his rapping. But like I don't know how you mic an entire stadium. I have no
yeah.
idea
That
how you do
that's
that well.
that's the thing, because with the Super Bowl, there are always going to be audio issues, because of course, you also need the crowd in attendance needs to get good sound. The people at home needs to get good sound, and then you also have people who are trying to mix both those together for broadcast. Like if you're probably
Mm-hmm.
at a Super Bowl, if you're at a sporting event live, like I've gone to plenty of football games and basketball games that have broadcast on TV. Like I think me and my sister went to an Atlanta United soccer game, and they had Goody Mob perform at the halftime show, and they played. I think they also played it on the broadcast. But what we sounded was so different from what my dad came on and said. Oh, this had some kind of rapper that sounded good. Or one time, me and my dad went to a Falcons game. Bobby Brown was the halftime show. Me and my dad were like, we can't really hear Bobby perform at all. But my mom was like, oh, I heard Bobby Brown was on TV and I'm watching it. Like she heard it fine. So there's always going
Mm-hmm.
to be those kind of differences with the audio
Yeah.
quality. So
So that's that. But yeah. And honestly, Kendrick, the breath control
yeah,
that he has to be rapping. And that's the thing that I was watching the other video that saw earlier today where they were like, rapping's very different from singing.
yeah.
So like even though Beyonce will be up there singing, dancing her heart out for 16 minutes, like being able to rap, move around all the space and like do some choreography here or there, like it takes an
And,
insane amount of breath
and
control. And I was like, you're right.
sometimes your bars have a different cadence, different flow, depending on a
Yes.
part of the song or a different song. So you might go through like three different melodic changes with your delivery in like one
Mm-hmm.
like 3 minute bar. So
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, you know,
Yeah, I was extremely impressed with his performance
yeah,
because it looked really hard.
yeah,
To be honest, like it looked tough to do that.
yeah,
Um, and I think he pulled it off and he was still giving like sometimes in his songs he'll do like little characters with his voice and stuff. Like
yeah.
he's giving performance on the albums, but he was also like giving the performance and
Physical,
like switching
yeah.
his yes while he was like doing his performance at the Super Bowl. So like honestly,
Like
great.
that
Like
that nod and
I thought
wink
it was fantastic.
that nod and
Like
wink when you were like, I want to play their favorite song. And I'm like, which one? It's like sometimes like a little wink he gives when he says it, or when he walks
mm-hmm.
by the camera before they play Not Like Us, he walks by the camera and says, hey Drake, and he kind of just nods his head
Mm-hmm.
a bit. Those kind of little comedic touches right
He's
there.
an actor.
You
Like I
know?
honestly believe he's an actor.
Yeah. And like I didn't even notice till after I sat down and rewatched a show. Like as soon as the halftime show went on, we were waiting for the football game. Me and my sister went I went right back and watched it again on YouTube, waiting for the football
Mm-hmm.
game to come back. And I was like, oh shit! I just noticed his chain. It is a lowercase a. Like
Yeah.
like stuff like that. I was like, this man is ridiculous. So yeah.
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 So honestly, I thought it was great. One of the best.
Yeah.
No complaints from
No
me.
complaints. No complaints.
No
And it's
complaints from me.
and like you picked up on you said something earlier about how if he would kind of subtle with it for a lot of people to pull different elements from it. But
Mm-hmm.
I realized I'll go back to my original statement on the perception of the show. Like
Mm.
consensus, no matter what as black people or people of color that we pull out from Kendrick's halftime show, we all reach the same point of what his message is.
Mm.
We might pick up different things from, we all reach the same point. Whereas for the majority of like white Americans, they did not understand it. Henceforth, they didn't
Yeah.
enjoy the halftime show at all. But then
Yeah,
again,
they didn't
his
get it.
his halftime show wasn't for them, essentially.
And I
So
think that that's the point.
yeah,
It was not for them. It was for us. And I
yeah,
really appreciated that. I appreciate that.
yeah,
So yeah, that was great. All right. Moving on to our next story. Pharrell Williams and Mikhail Gondry scrapped their movie musical at Universal in post production. So the studio will not release the project, nor will it be shopped to other buyers after filmmakers hit impasse in the editing room. Now, I remember this movie because I think Calvin Harris Jr. was going to be in it. I think he was going to
yeah.
play Pharrell.
He's playing, either for his
Um,
father or something.
insane that you would scrap it when you have already filmed it and you're in the editing. That's kind of insane to me. Like like movies not going ahead like when they're in their early stages. That makes sense. Like it is very difficult to get a film made, but you're telling me you already made it,
Hmm.
um, and then stopped. So whatever happened in the editing room, this is one quote. It said, when all of us got into the editing room, we collectively decided there wasn't a path forward to tell the version of the story that we originally envisioned. That's what Pharrell Williams said. We appreciate all the hard work of the talent, cast, and crew. While we're disappointed we can't deliver this film, we have incredible partners at Universal and will collaborate in a different capacity again soon.
Hmm.
And they already had Universal will absorb roughly 20 million in cost already spent on production.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and the thing is, the cast wasn't like any small cast. You have Kevin Kelvin Harrison. You had Halle Bailey, uh, Ludivine Joy, who won an award last year. You know, so
yes.
her rate goes up. Brian Tyree Henry, his rate goes up. Quinta,
Mm-hmm.
her rate goes up. Janelle
Oh yeah.
Monáe, Jabuki Youngwhite, who's a comedian, Tim Meadows, Anderson .Paak, Missy Elliott, and Andre 3000. So it had a stacked roster of black talent behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also applauding Pharrell and Michael Gondry of realizing in the post production projects that this story was not the story we want to tell, and are willing to pause it, and also for Universal to willing to eat that and say, you know what, you guys are right, we'll just part away from there. Most other studios would have been like, nah, this has to go out. We got to recoup something,
Right,
or
right.
whatever. But all three major parties involved are like, all right, cool. We can't go any further with this project, which I am in awe and impressed with.
Yeah, maybe someone's learning something.
So,
Shocking.
so yeah, I know I don't know, that's impressive to me, especially considering the run Pharrell has been on in the pop culture zeitgeist, where he's now become this iconoclast in a way, which
Mm,
I never saw him becoming.
mm,
This is post Minions with Happy, the public perception of him, like within black community and music people, he was always that dude, as a producer and stuff but Sid post Happy, he's just become this major iconic figure. He's had like a Lego movie made out of him for him, documentary. He's had this, so it's kind of weird the come up that he had like the last 6 or so years, just
yeah,
off of
he's the
one.
creative director of Louis Vuitton. Like
Yeah,
that is the biggest fashion brand ever. So, well, not well, men's Louis Vuitton
minutes.
men's,
Yeah,
but yeah, still
yeah.
took over for Virgil. But yeah,
So,
that's kind of sad. I
yeah,
actually wanted to see that movie.
yeah.
So,
So, moving on from that. So David Johnson, will star in Frank Ocean's directorial debut in the film. Frank has currently been like, whenever he's not making music, Frank's like, y'all ain't gonna hear nothing from me at all. David Johnson, I watched him in the industry. Of course we talk about him when we review a couple of British films that he's on, and amazing talent, doesn't get the credit he gets here that he does overseas. He just came off of Alien Romulus with Kayleen Spacey with two amazing reviews, especially with his performance.
mm,
Um, but apparently the film, Frank Ocean's film, is currently shooting in Mexico City. Um, and they haven't really revealed a lot of details over it. Like the film itself is even untitled.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's an amazing, amazing step for him. He's not just starring in this; he's going to star in Stephen King's movie The Long Walk. He's going to star in Wasteman. He's got a lot of projects coming out, and I'm so happy for David Johnson. Like now, the ball is rolling for him as an actor, and he's getting more parts and roles on this side of the Atlantic. So
yeah, he's such a great actor. So
yeah,
I'm very excited for his career, honestly.
yeah.
But yeah, I knew that there was conversations about Frank Ocean making a movie. I think he was working with A24, maybe he still is in this capacity. But it kind of shifted and changed throughout the years since that was like announced. Um, it's interesting because like I haven't did he make videos for Blonde? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to
Hmm.
remember 2016. Oh my God. Um, I can't remember if he did. I will say that his music, in the same vein of like Billie Eilish or someone like that, their music is very cinematic. So like you can hear their music and like see visually kind of a story, even if you're just making it yourself. Like I feel like that's the kind of music they make, where it's like I think what is that? What's the song where he's like doing all different voices? It's not Ivy, it's the other one. But I can't. Yeah, is it Nights?
Hmm.
It's one of them.
One of those,
Off
yeah.
of Blonde,
One of them.
where like where that song is like in every single show, movie that I've heard. Like they use his music a lot when it comes to like soundtrack stuff, and which makes sense because I think that he's one of my favorite artists, honestly. So like that makes sense to me. But like him getting in the director's chair and being like, I'm gonna make this film. I'm very interested to see what it's gonna look like, what the story is going to be, because I think he is a good storyteller. I feel like the fact that we don't know anything about him and all of his music is sort of cryptic in kind of way, kind of mysterious. Like you're not really sure what he's talking about. And maybe that's kind of the point. Like he just wants you to feel the music versus like actually understand like what, because we don't know anything about him really. So it's like this could be about anything. Um, and I think he's a good storyteller and kind of like keeping like formulating a story and maybe even formulating characters within the story when it comes to his music. So like maybe that will transfer to this film.
Yeah.
I hope it does.
Yeah. So apparently the Oscars, there's a bit of a buzz right now. So Best Picture contender Brutalist got a lot of headlines and also controversy with the state of the industry in regards to AI, but not just that. A complete unknown, Dune Part Two and Amelia Perez also have had AI involved in large and unknown ways. So the Academy
Mm.
is currently looking forward to explore the submission requirements for films that have disclosed their use of AI, and they're going to investigating making mandatory rule changes for it. Which I think is a good thing. Um, there, of course, visual effects entries, Furiosa and Deadpool, they use them in VFX way. It's unknown, as of now to what level it was used in the Brutalist or Emilia Perez, but it's clear that if it's to the point where the Oscars are willing to delineate the levels at which they were used to this far in, make recommendation to change their rulings, it's necessary. Um, so even like the Visual Effects Society Awards, there's a award show for that. They detailed Mad Max, what they have now they use, A Complete Unknown, what Deadpool Wolverine. A lot of movies that are heavy CGI use, they have to disclose how much. So it's interesting to see going forward how that'll affect a lot of these Best Picture nominees. But I do think this is like the Oscars now kind of have a mix of talent and producers. People who are really more involved in the making of the movie more so than the studio owners. So I think they care more, little bit more about the use of AI in these pictures and stuff going forward. So
Yeah, I think the Oscars are still pretty old-fashioned in terms of how they want things to be done. I think that they have updated things a lot more recently.
yeah.
Even in terms of like the choices of best picture that we're getting. It's a nice mixture of like traditional Oscar movies versus like movies that people have actually watched and really like.
Mm,
So I think that they're trying to move in a good direction. And I think this is definitely a step in the right direction because The Brutalist, I heard a lot about the AI situation in that movie in particular. So I didn't even know it was being used in those other films. So yeah, I think that they're doing a really good job at like figuring out like how to, because yeah, it can get a little dicey about like what are you actually doing in these films.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Last story we're gonna talk about is Fantastic Four First Steps.
Hmm.
The teaser trailer dropped. Your thoughts on this one? Are you excited about it?
I'm excited on it of it. I love like pseudo scientific period pieces, and it's clear this is like a 1970s, 1980s period piece with like it reminds me a lot of the modern touches remind me a lot of Batman the animated series, kind of Art Deco, but still contemporary, and it has modern technology, but in an old fashioned kind of way.
Mhm.
Seeing Pedro Pascal and his interaction with the cast, like I think they made a really good decision in casting. Especially I think in regards to I forgot her name. Jeez, the
Oh,
one
Vanessa
the
Kirby.
Vanessa Kirby, yes, in her regards to Sue Storm, because I do think as talented as Jessica Alba is, she wasn't given the opportunity to be more of a powerful woman, which Sue Storm is one of the strongest women in Marvel Comics. She's a superhero. Like she is clear in the picture, she is more of the team's conscious in a way. In that kind of sense, based on what you get in the trailer. I love the Thing and Herbie. in the kitchen. You get cousin, talking about Italian food, which I love is a lovely nod to the bear in his role. I
Mm-hmm.
love stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and I love the goofiness that we see of Johnny Storm, who showcases being a teenager. He's chilling in his couch, like putting on a astronaut helmet, which I love. I think the issue why the Fox movies kind of hit or miss is because the people involved in it weren't really in love with the comic as much. And it's clear that even the pitfalls that the MCU faces, that Kevin Feige is a fan of the comics. You
Yeah.
know, so at least that part is, you can't deny that no matter how they might, like, the Eternals might have fell, to the fan reaction, or they might have hit or misses. It's clear that um a lot of people are involved with these projects are also fans of these characters as well.
Yeah, which is always honestly, I feel like that's just like that should just be the standard. Like if you're gonna make these movies, like you need to care about the source material, or otherwise you're just not. I don't know. It seems like the ones that do always it always comes out the
Yeah.
best. But I'm really excited. I didn't realize until just now that I've watched all of those movies. Like I watched the first two with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans back in the day. And then I watched that other one with Michael B. Jordan and Miles Teller and them. Like it wasn't good, but I still went to the theater and watched it. Like I guess I'm invested in this series. Like I didn't realize I was until just now, but yeah, I'm excited for it. I like that it has that like retro 1960s feel, like going to space for the first time. Like I'm really excited about like what they're going to do with it. And I like that it's going to like really usher in a different phase of Marvel, which hopefully will be better than the phases
Yeah.
that we've gotten before. And I think the chemistry between all of them, it shows on screen already. I'm really
Yeah.
excited about their interactions because I really like all of those actors. So I will be there. I will show up for it because
Mhm.
I guess I've been showing up for it since I was a
I,
child.
I love how Pedro Pascal has somehow become America's dad due to his roles.
He
In a
has.
way.
He should get an
Um,
award for that.
but yeah, it's clear I like how Marvel used the subtitles to tell the story. This being first steps. It's clear that the struggle they've had before looking for a replacement for Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. in wake of Chadwick Boseman's death with Black Panther. It was clear he was going to be the linchpin going forward as the
Hmm.
lead figure actor. It seems like Marvel has found that they're going to key in on using the Fantastic Four, given that they're the first superheroes in Marvel, and also they're the first family of Marvel. It's clear that they're going to lean on them to take us forward into the next steps of the cinematic universe. Some people thought it would be Doctor Strange, but that has kind of fallen by the website. So it's clear that the amount of attention and care Marvel has given into this project in particular, that is their focus going forward. Especially because they
Yeah.
also get to face Galactus in their first movie, which is a Marvel. He's a Marvel big baddie, like top of the top. In their first
Hmm.
foray, they're going against him, so that's interesting to watch. So,
Yeah. I'm a little curious about the design of the thing.
mm.
I'm not sure how I feel about it yet.
I don't know. Like, even I picked up on it. To me, the thing in this movie looks a lot
Mm.
more like how he was originally drawn by like Jack Kirby, and a lot of people have recognized it. I know Michael, like, he's using a
Okay.
mix of both prosthetics, and they also go back and re-enhance it with CGI, how the eyes animate and stuff. But I know the one Michael Chiklis, the first two with Jessica Alba, and
Yeah.
they had Michael Chiklis in a full
Yeah,
suit,
it was a
a
practical, like
full
full.
practical
Yeah.
suit.
Hmm.
I think in this one they use a mix of both, where they have the suit so at least characters have an eye line to speak to, and then they go back and post and do the
I think
functions.
he was also doing some motion capture. If
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
like
mistaken.
much
Yeah.
like
Mark
Mark
Ruffalo when
Ruffalo
he
from the
did.
Hulk. Yeah,
Yeah.
mostly on set, so people have an eye line, you can deliver your lines and still emote, but then behind the scenes we do CGI, which I enjoy. I mean, in these cases, I like when Marvel does that. I don't like what they do with Spider-Man, where they have him in the suit, and then they go back and say, "Hey, we're gonna CGI everything we did in the suit anyway." At least this time it kind of makes sense
Yeah.
of the kind of character they're putting on screen. So,
Yeah. Okay. All right, quickly, what have we been watching?
yeah, like I said, biggest thing I watched Super Bowl. Me being a NASCAR fan, well, motorsports fan, I also did watch the Madhouse of Bowman Grade. Kind of NASCAR's opening race, kind of not we're open races. Daytona 500 coming this coming Sunday. But yeah, just motorsports. Of course, the Super Bowl. That was the big thing I keyed on. Kind of rewatched last Indiana Jones with my dad because he said, "Oh, I never saw it." I'm like, "Yeah, you did." But yeah, mostly just Super Bowl. That's the main thing in my entertainment head right now. So yeah.
Yeah. I started watching the series called Manhunt on. Okay, wait, hold on. What is it actually called? It's called American Manhunt. But there is an O.J. Simpson version, which I am watching currently, and yeah, it's honestly a really interesting case study in terms of like where America was at, especially Black Americans, African Americans, where they were at during this time period and how that influenced the outcome of that trial and then kind of the commentary about that trial, even though that man killed those two people. So it's very interesting. I'm not done with it. It's a 4-part series and I'm gonna finish it tonight, hopefully. But I'm also like, I rewatched some episodes from season 1 of Severance, just to get some more context of like what's going on in season 2. I am so Severance pilled. Like, it's the only thing I can think about. Like, it's maybe the best show I've seen since, I don't know, I can't remember. Maybe I had this feeling when I was watching The Last of Us or when I was watching Game of Thrones or something, the earlier seasons, but I can't remember. All I can remember right now is Severance. Like, that's the only thing that I'm thinking about, that last episode. Oh my God. Like, I have to, my best friend and I were supposed to watch it together, but she hasn't watched it, or she started watching it and said she didn't like it or whatever. I don't know. I just need someone to like bob at, because like I have so many questions and I need to talk about it. And yeah, so yeah, that's what I've been watching. And yes, that is it from us this week. We hope that you're doing well and taking care of yourselves. Please check out all of our social media, support us if you can, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Au revoir.